Okay, just a quick look at the potentiometer setup. This is to be mounted at the hinge point where the carriage hinges around, so it's all in conjunction with working the tip ram, and the tip ram is operated by a servo driver, and a potentiometer is there to monitor what angle the carriage is at. So it's going to coincide with the tilt as well, so that when the arm is lifted, jacked up, then the carriage will stay level, or whatever angle you set it at. It's going to have one of these potentiometers both ends, so it's going to have a potentiometer there and a potentiometer right at the other end there. So one of the first steps is to actually mount the potentiometer. So what's going to happen in this instance is the potentiometer is going to turn with the carriage, but the inside of the pot, or the adjustment, is done on the white piece. So I need something to slot in there to drive it. So what I come up with is a driver. So I've made this out of a piece of 5mm brass rod. Don't know whether the camera will actually pick it up, but I've filed down to leave a couple of lugs, and that will slot into the end of the potentiometer and turn it as it's going round. So this has got to be mounted stationary in a fixed position. So what I've done is this pivot pin is fixed. So I'm going to mount this driver on the end of that pivot point and lock it in. So I've drilled a hole through so that I can insert a driver in through there. So I've threaded this M2, so I'm going to be using an M2 by 6 button-headed screw, and it's designed in such a way that I can put the button-headed screw in through, screw that on the end. I'll use some thread lock and lock it into position so that it's fixed, locked onto this shaft. So it needs to be in a, let me think, vertical plane, so that the pot is in the midway position. So what I'll do, I'll install the brass thing. Incidentally, if you haven't got any brass, it is printable. So I've printed off a plastic one, which will probably do the same job, but as I made the prototype out of brass, I'll use that one instead. So I'll install that first, put some thread lock on. I've just screwed that up now, and that's locked into the vertical position. Don't know whether the camera will make that out, but that is in the vertical plane. So I've just demonstrated there how to access that screw that's on the inside. I've got the pot, which is a 502, so it's a 5k pot, 6x6 I believe, 6x6 square, and I've got it set in the midway position, and the slot is horizontal to the wires, I guess. So that is ready to sit on the top of that driver like so. So the next thing we've got to do is to click together the carriage. It's designed in such a way that the tail of that will actually go in to its stop, and then it will click into position onto the other hinge there. Okay, so we've now got it hinged. The pot now will sit on top between these two slots here. That cap pushes into the back of the pot, pushes down and clips in behind this ridge here, and then there's a 2mm 2x5 grub screw, screws down through the top of the bracket and into the retainer, and that holds that bracket into position. So we've got a potentiometer now that turns, so we've got a very precise adjustment for the servo driver, so that is monitoring the angle by changing the resistance between the three wires.